let's rank every version of Dr. Wily from worst to best. And starting off at the worst, we have the only version of Dr. Wily that can literally soft lock your game, at least that I'm aware of. That, of course, is Wily's escape capsule from Mega Man 4. Normally, this would only be on screen for about a second, then you move on to the last level, but if you're quick and switch to Toadman's weapon, you can actually stop Dr. Wily from escaping by killing him. Unfortunately, though, this breaks the first rule of robotics, and as punishment, Mega Man is stuck in purgatory and your game is soft-locked. Some could say this is the best plan Dr. Wily has ever made, but I mean, he literally dies, so this is by far his worst form. Next up, we have this Smasher Wily machine from Mega Man 5 right after the refights, and I'm sure you guys know why this is so low. First of all, it's just weird. Why is Wily trying to smash Mega Man? Pause. But on top of that, the physics of this fight are just way too wonky. It feels like the floor is moving up and down more than Wily, which is just throwing everything off. This isn't even due to any hardware limitations either, as far as I'm aware, because in Mega Man 4, Dr. Cossack was able to crash down on top of Mega Man and even lift him up, so everything about this fight is stupid. Let's just move on. Next up, we have fake Dr. Wily. This guy shows up a couple of times in the Mega Man franchise, and it's just kind of silly. I don't hate this or anything, but it feels like a really inefficient use of Dr. Wily's time. Why not just have a regular robot pilot whatever machine you had going that would actually fight Mega Man? Or better yet, why not have the fake Dr. Wily explode and kill Mega Man? Who knows what's going on up there in Dr. Wily's noggin, but while this thing is silly and obviously just a visual gag, it is not a great version of Dr. Wily. You know who else isn't a great version of Dr. Wily? The Ruby Spheres version of Dr. Wily. Now, let me be clear. Once again, this version of Dr. Wily isn't actually bad. It's just that compared to the Wilys we have coming out with the actual gameplay and substance, this is just a cheesy cartoon villain. And frankly, there's nothing wrong with that in this context. I actually like the Ruby Spears Mega Man cartoon, but even I have to admit that it's cheesy. Dr. Wily is also one of the better parts of this cartoon, but he's a little bit repetitive in this, and even when it comes to Mega Man animations, there are just better Dr. Wilys, as we'll come to find out. Now we have Dr. Wily from the Power Fighters 2. I mean, what is this weird skull thing? It's not awful or anything, I guess. I don't hate it, it's just weird. This is a very weird design. I don't like it. And immediately after, we have Dr. Wily from the first Power Fighters game. This design is slightly better, but it's still very zany even for Dr. Wily standards. I do like it more than the skull thing from the second Power Fighters game, just because it's a lot more creative, but both of these designs are just indescribably weird. I don't know what it is, and while I don't hate them, they certainly aren't the best versions of Dr. Wily. In fact, if you haven't been keeping up, this Samurai Hands Dr. Wily is actually the 23rd best Dr. Wily. How about that? And coming in as the 22nd best version of Dr. Wily, we have the Toothpick Walker Wily machine from Mega Man 3. Now, I know this is probably the first real controversial pick of this list, or should I say toothpick of this list? But I mean, this thing is just weird. This fight is kind of fun, I guess, but there's a lot of waiting around which actually isn't fun, and on top of that, this thing is weird looking if you couldn't tell. Once again, I do not hate this thing. I don't think I hate any version of Dr. Wily, but I certainly never liked this one. It's freaky looking, it's a strangely designed fight gameplay wise, and the majority of this fight is just waiting for its lanky toothpick legs to drag itself onto the screen. But next up, we have young Dr. Wily. That's right, this is the Dr. Wily from the cutscenes of Mega Man 11, but also even from the Ruby Spears cartoon, because young Dr. Wily is really just a concept. At least that's how I'm ranking it for now. And young Dr. Wily has a lot of great ideas, actually. First of all, he was a good guy, so he's got to get some bonus points for that. The only thing bad about young Dr. Wily is that he lets Dr. Light's ridicule get to his head, which ultimately turns him evil, but Dr. Wily being evil is the current Dr. Wily, while young Dr. Wily is the good guy with good ideas who's just a scientist pioneering the robot industry. I don't know, I don't have much to say about this guy, but he's a good guy. He's friends with Dr. Light. I mean, that's pretty cool, right? Now it's time for Wily Machine 1. Now, this is of course the first Wily battle in the entire Mega Man series, and it's also the last boss battle in the entirety of Mega Man 1. Now, I love this thing. I love the whole idea of a Wily machine, and the design of this one is crazy and intricate in ways I can really appreciate. I also enjoy the fight. It's a bit basic, and it's also a little bit too easy for my taste, but it at least has 2 stages, which ended up being an ongoing theme for Wily machines. So this thing was a trendsetter. I also like that you're able to see Dr. Wily's face in the second stage. I mean, that's pretty neat. But the main problem I have with this Wily machine is that it's very clear that it's the first Wily machine, and by that I mean Dr. Wily improved on pretty much every other Wily machine from this point forward. Well, okay, not the ones we've already covered, obviously, obviously, but you get the idea. I love how it really looks like a machine, while a lot of the future designs look like skulls or spaceships, but this one is also a little bit steampunky in aesthetic, which I think is aged a little bit poorly. So while this is one of my personal favorites, I think objectively it belongs here on the list, which is the 20th best version of Dr. Wily if you haven't been counting. Next up, we potentially have another controversial pick being Gamma. First of all, the story behind Gamma is ridiculous. After Mega Man 2, Dr. Wily pretended to be a good guy, which is fair because he used to be a good guy, and at this point in the series, he's only been evil twice, right? Him being friends with Dr. Light, again, isn't far-fetched, but what is far-fetched is a Pokemon. It's Dr. Light's dream that he tells Dr. Wily. Apparently, Dr. Light has always dreamed of making a giant, deadly robot designed for keeping peace throughout the universe, which, you know, would be a great dream if you were like 5 years old, or maybe haven't gone through 2 robot rebellions that have caused major catastrophe. But Dr. Light has gone through multiple robot rebellions that have caused major catastrophe, and he's not a 5-year-old. Yet he still told that idea to Dr. Wily. So of course, Dr. Wily was like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, Dr. Light. Let me help you build this giant, deadly, peacekeeping robot. Only to, of course, betray Dr. Light. I mean, this is just ridiculous, and the fight almost seems tedious. It's not bad or anything, I don't hate it. Like I said, I don't hate any version of Dr. Wily, but this fight is just kind of boring. Hopping up on the platforms is just a weird design choice. I mean, it's fun to do the top spin speedrunning strats, but other than that, this fight is pretty dumb. Oh, I guess that little blue robot piloting the bigger robot is cute, and that's kind of funny, but yeah, other than those two things, this fight is stupid. Speaking of stupid things, Dr. Wily landing on a tree in Mega Man 3. You guys remember that, right? You just beat Gamma and then you watch the credits and Dr. Wily's capsule pretends to be a bird by landing on a tree. I don't know what the deal is here, but at least it's kind of funny. Next up though, we have the Wily machine from Mega Man 8. Now, this is actually a solid fight, and I think this is the point of the list where every iteration of Dr. Wily is at the very least pretty good. I'd say from here on out, they're all a minimum 7.5 out of 10. And this is a fun fight. Having to close this thing's mouth to stop it from shooting a powerful laser is a great mechanic that I think is super fun. The design is iconic and great. The fight is pretty challenging but not too difficult. Just good enough to be fun. I mean, my main complaint is probably that the Wily capsule battle directly after this is just a Mega Man 7 copycat and a little bit worse, which is unoriginal. But the first phase of this fight is amazing, and if I were separating this list by every phase, then this first phase would be a lot higher, but this video would also be a lot longer, so if you couldn't tell, I'm sorting it by every instance of Dr. Wily, and there's already too many of those, so let's just move on. And here we have the Wily machine from Rockman and Forte. This one is very similar to the Mega Man 8 one in design, but it's a little bit cooler and a little bit more fun. Plus, the capsule stage is not a direct copycat of Mega Man 7, so this one is better. Plus, my subscribers know I love Rockman and Forte, don't even get me started. Another thing I love is begging Dr. Wily. Yep, that's right. This entry is begging Dr. Wily, as in Dr. Wily every time he begs. I know this is silly, but come on guys, this is just one of Dr. Wily's most iconic moves and positions, which is honestly a little bit pathetic for a mad scientist of Dr. Wily's caliber, but other than it being a little bit pathetic, this is iconic, pretty funny, and it shows Dr. Wily isn't ever too big for his britches. He knows when Mega Man has defeated him, and he almost always surrenders without putting up a big fuss, which is pretty admirable. So shoutouts to begging Dr. Wily. You are the 15th best version of Dr. Wily for all those people who are not counting or paying attention. But even better yet is Mega Man 8 cutscene Dr. Wily. Now, unlike a lot of people, I love Mega Man 8's cutscenes unironically. Sure, the voice acting can be silly, but I actually enjoy that. It's certainly much better than having to read in a video game, especially because I can't read, but Dr. Wily actually has the best voice acting in Mega Man 8 anyway, as far as I'm concerned. And the animation in these cutscenes are phenomenal. This animation is often overlooked due to the silly voice acting, but I'm not kidding when I say I love these cutscenes, and I'm also not kidding when I say I love Dr. Wily from Mega Man 8's cutscenes even more than Dr. Wily's boss fights from Mega Man 8 itself. Is that crazy? Maybe, but this is a Tooterp video, so let's just continue. Here we have the final Wily 5, and we're really getting into things now. This is the first normal Wily capsule fight in the entire series, so it's got to get some points for that alone. Sure, there is a Wily capsule fight in Mega Man 4, but we'll talk about that one when the time comes. On top of that, we also have the big skull thing on wheels, which is just awesome. Both phases of this Dr. Wily fight are super iconic and enjoyable, at least for the most part. I really enjoy doing the first phase of this fight. I think it's super fun, but the Wily capsule is a little bit boring. Sure, it is iconic, has a great design and a simple design, and the fight is not necessarily bad, but there's just a lot of waiting and not a lot of actual fighting. Plus, with Beat being the primary weakness, that that just takes all the fun out of this fight. Sure, it is cool that Beat the Bird is the weakness to Dr. Wily, but you end up just standing around watching Beat beat the game for you. Oh my gosh, that's why he's called Beat. That's why he's called Beat. And if you decide not to use Beat, then you have to wait for Dr. Wily to be in range, which just depends on your luck, because Dr. Wily can be really annoying when he's sitting in that little capsule of his. But even that being said, it's just a nitpick. The first phase of this fight is pretty good, and the second phase is still iconic if nothing else, so let's move on. Now it's time for Wily Machine 4, which is a much more polished and well put together Wily Machine in general. Remember earlier when I was saying that I loved the Wily Machine 1, but the design did not age well due to the future versions just looking better? This is one of the reasons why. We have a much more compact Wily Machine with a skull head, and design-wise, this is just great. It even has a second phase still where Wily reveals his head through the glass window in case you didn't know who you were fighting. The only complaint about this Wily Machine is that it's a little bit basic and boring. The design is pretty basic even though it's good, but the fight is just, I don't know, it's not bad, but it's not very memorable. I mean, both versions of this fight are the same. The Wily Machine shoots these weird fireball things at you. That's it, just don't get hit by the big old fireball things and make sure you hit Dr. Wily while you're at it. It's also annoying that in the Mega Man Legacy Collection during the second phase, you have to blow up the Drill Man weapon to actually hit Dr. Wily at all. And if I remember correctly, you don't have to do that in the original NES game, but that's a Mega Man Legacy Collection problem and not a Wily Machine 4 problem if that is the case. Either way, this fight is still really good and well polished. The only problem is it might be too well polished to the point where it's bland and forgettable. Again, it's not bad at all though, just to be clear. Solid Wily Machine and a solid 8.5 out of 10. But moving on to the 9 out of 10 Wily capsules, we have the Wily Machine 11. Now, Mega Man 11 doesn't get a lot of love because compared to all the other Mega Man games, it just doesn't do a lot to stand out. Sure, it does have the double gear system and it's definitely a great game, but it just feels like Mega Man 7 when compared to the first 6 NES games, because even though it's really good and even improves on them in a lot of ways, it just feels weird. But that being said, this Wily Machine really does not get nearly enough credit. I think it's actually very good. It's obviously not the best Wily Machine ever, but this is a super fun fight. It does look a little strange and steampunky once again, but that fits better in Mega Man 11 with the whole double gear system thing I was just talking about. The main thing that's annoying with this fight is in the final phase with the Wily capsule, Dr. Wily decides to use the speed gear and is basically impossible to hit if you also aren't using the speed gear to slow down time. Now, that's not actually that bad and it's another nitpick, but I don't know if it's actually possible to hit it without the speed gear. All I know is the first time I ever played Mega Man 11, I did not use any gears the entire time until this final stage when I remembered they existed at all. And the only reason I remembered they existed was because I was like, man, Dr. Wily is going crazy. It's pretty hard to land a hit on it. Oh yeah, I have the speed gear. Now that's kind of a stupid complaint, but overall this is a great Wily boss battle. Plus, once you beat him and he goes into the begging Wily mode, he uses the gear system to look cool while doing it. So if I ever make a video ranking every version of begging Dr. Wily, this guy will probably be number 1, so subscribe for that video. But now we're finally entering the top 10, and at number 10 we have Dinosaur Wily in the capsule fight that follows. I mean, come on guys, this is a cool design. It's a dinosaur with a skull head. I mean, that's just awesome. A lot of people think this version of Dr. Wily is unfairly hard with the whole shooting the egg mechanic thing, but I actually never had trouble with that personally, and I really enjoy it. I think it's very refreshing to have a new gimmick like this in a Dr. Wily fight without it feeling like it's changing too much, and again, I don't think it's that hard. It's like a little game in between the Robot Master boss battles and the final Wily capsule fight. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is an unpopular opinion, but I really enjoy this fight and I think it's super fun. Plus, the dinosaur design is awesome. What's not to like? Well, I guess the Wily capsule fight is kind of boring and basic, but I prefer the terms iconic and franchise staple to describe the Wily capsule fight, so yeah. This fight is a 9.5 out of 10, and pretty much everything after that is either that or better, which is crazy. Speaking of crazy, Dr. Wily made a pirate ship robot? Oh my goodness, what was he thinking? Joking aside, I love this fight. This is such a cool design, and the fight is also incredibly fun. I do think it's weird that I rank this right next to the Mega Man 9 Wily fight. I promise I'm not being lazy. I genuinely put a lot of time into the ranking order for this video. This just happened to be the case. And so did the Mega Man 8 and Rockman and Forte Wily Machine, but I don't know what it is. Maybe subconsciously, since they're from similar games, they end up being on the same spot in the list, but maybe it's just the quality of games that release so close together are going to be similar. I don't know. But anyway, I need to stop rambling. This is a super fun fight. I'd say it's slightly better than the Mega Man 9 Dr. Wily fights, but honestly, it depends on my mood. I could definitely see myself like a week from now wishing that I switched these two around because they're so similar, and oh man, this is the 9th best Dr. Wily too. video, so it would have been cool to have the Mega Man 9 Dr. Wily as number 9. Let's hurry up and move on before I change my mind and remake the entire video. Next up, we have Anime Dr. Wily from Mega Man Upon a Star. Now, this version of Dr. Wily is one of my favorites of all times for many reasons. First of all, this anime is just amazing. I made a review video on it if you want to check that out, but it's just a great anime, and Dr. Wily is part of why. First of all, he managed to escape the game world of Mega Man 5 and enter the real world, or at least the anime world, and that in itself is a huge feat, and I don't even know where that would put this version of Dr. Wily on the power rankings. Plus, Dr. Wily dresses up as Santa Claus at the end of the anime, and he pilots a giant space robot in true anime fashion, so this is one of the coolest versions of Dr. Wily of all time. Plus, it's from an anime, which is just bonus points. Who doesn't like anime? If none of that convinced you though, check out this clip right here.
I don't give up that easily, because I'm a ninja! Huh?
I rest my case. I love Ninja Wily, but I also love the Wily robot who is half the battle in this Mega Man 10 final fight. Knowing is the other half. But first of all, setting the stage for this battle is one of the coolest things in all of Mega Man. You go to outer space, which is something I clearly enjoy, then you fall for like a million years only to land in a room where you're able to see into outer space as you battle the final version of Dr. Wily in Mega Man 10. Everything about this fight is so cool, and this might even be my favorite level from this game. But if you want to know for sure, I did make a video on the best level from every Mega Man game. Now, the fight is not the most innovative thing ever created, but it's still pretty fun. You have to find the right Dr. Wily to attack, and then that's the game. But to be fair to this fight, even though it's easy, you did just finish defeating the pirate ship Wily battle, so this is more like the finale to the game than the difficult final boss. And as a finale, I love this thing. Everything about this stage, the atmosphere, the design, and even the fight is just good. I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I'm very curious to see what you guys down in the comment section think about this specific Wily battle, so let me know. Next up is finally time to talk about the first ever Wily capsule battle, the light thing from Mega Man 4 that's weak to Pharaoh Man. Now, if you know this battle, you know why I called the capsule battle from Mega Man 5 the first quote-unquote normal capsule battle. And if you don't know why, it's because this fight is in the dark, and that's cool. Everything about this fight is cool, really. I love how Wily disappears into the darkness, I love how fun it is, and I even love that the weakness is Pharaoh Man's weapon, which you can use to double hit Dr. Wily. Plus, Pharaoh Man's weapon is a light ball thing, I think, and it makes perfect sense that for a battle in the dark, you have to use the power of light. I don't know, that's cool. For the first Wily capsule battle in the entire Mega Man series, this is very impressive and creative, so I think it is amazing. Now, we've finally entered the top 5, and coming in at number 5, we have the Wily Machine 2. Now, this could be my Mega Man 2 bias because I love Mega Man 2, but I also just love this version of the Wily Machine. It's a much more polished version of the Mega Man 1 Wily Machine, but it's also not too polished or a little bit stale like some of the other future Wily machines. This one still looks like a machine while also improving on every aspect of the original one from Mega Man 1. Design aside though, this fight is also very fun. It's much more challenging than the original Wily machine due to it doing a lot more damage, but it also has some fun strats to take it down that are fairly difficult to pull off with crash bombs. If you didn't know, you could use crash bombs explosion to take this thing down in 2 hits, but it's a lot harder than you would think it is because you need to be very precise, so it's not quite cheese. But even without crash bombs, this fight is just fun. Spamming metal blades or the plain old dude while getting to look at this beautiful machine is just so much fun, and I love it. It might be my favorite Wily machine, at least design wise, but the gameplay admittedly holds it back just a little bit. But it's still fun. It's not like the gameplay is bad, but the gameplay of these next 4 are even better. And coming in at number 4, we have the infamous Mega Man 7 Wily boss fight. Now, this fight is known for being very hard, but I think that's actually a good thing. This is the final boss to the only mainline classic Mega Man game on the Super Nintendo, so it better not be an easy fight. That would be stupid. But while this fight is difficult, I think it is very well designed, and the actual visual design of this fight is also great. First of all, we do have this weird skull walker thing. This is not the most beautiful Wily machine ever, but it's fine for a first phase, and it's also pretty fun to deal with. The little mini versions that get thrown at you can be a bit annoying to deal with, but overall, this part of the fight is pretty easy. The second half, however, is where most people start to throw their controllers. This Wily capsule is definitely the most difficult Wily capsule battle in the entire Mega Man series, but that's why I like it. The 4 elemental attacks it throws at you are incredibly hard to dodge consistently, and trying to sneak in hits with Springman's weapon on top of all of that is a true test of your gaming abilities. Springman's weapon, first of all, is already hard to use, but it's just the only way you can hit Dr. Wily when he spawns in high in the air. And even then, sometimes you can't hit him, but I guess that's just Wily capsule battles for you because they always do that. It's just significantly more annoying in a battle like this due to the sheer difficulty and concentration required of you. Because one hit does like like half of your health bar. Come on, you need like 8 E-tanks if you're doing this casually. But again, that's why I like it. This is the final boss battle, and it is a true test of your abilities. So while I do understand why a lot of people do not like this battle, I think it's great, and it deserves its spot as the 4th best iteration of Dr. Wily. But at number 3, we have the inspiration for the Mega Man 7 Wily capsule, the final Mega Man 6 battle. Now, as far as specifically the capsule battle goes, I do think that the Mega Man 7's capsule is a little bit better objectively for a few reasons, but the Mega Man 6 final battle has a much better first phase, and it even has a second phase before the capsule shows up. And the first phase is amazing. It is a giant scary skull. I mean, it's fun and it looks great, but what more is there to even say? The second phase is more of the same, but if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? Both the first and the second stage of this battle are super fun and iconic, but on top of that, the music that plays during this fight is one of the best and most climactic songs in the entire NES library. I think the music and the atmosphere are really what bring this fight so high on this list because it is amazing. I talk more about this song in my video on the best song from every Mega Man game, but I'm sure you guys know if you've played it. Plus, it's still a great fight. Like I said, the first 2 phases are super fun and have great design, and while the capsule battle is slightly worse than the one from Mega Man 7, it's still nothing to sneeze at, unless of course you did just sneeze, in which case bless you. The capsule battle is still very fun though, and a significant upgrade over the one from Mega Man 5 because you don't have to sit there and let Beat do all the work for you. Sure, that is a downgrade on Beat's part, but this video has nothing to do with Beat. This is about Dr. Wily, and whatever Beat repellent he used worked great and made for a very fun capsule battle. Plus, I very much enjoy using Tomahawk Man's weapon, especially to hit things in the air, so pretty much everything about this battle is great as far as I'm concerned. It's super fun, it has a great design. I mean, what could be better than this? Well, first of all, at number 2, we have the actual Wily UFO flying saucer. You know, the thing he rides where he shows what he can do with his eyebrows. I mean, this thing is incredibly iconic. It had to be high on this list. Sure, it's not an actual Wily fight, but it's still an iteration of Dr. Wily, and it's probably the first thing that comes to most people's minds when they think of Dr. Wily. In fact, the only reason this thing is not number 1 is because it makes an awful noise, and even that awful noise is iconic and charming somehow, which is impressive, because I hate that noise. But I don't hate the Wily UFO, obviously. I mean, it is the second best version of Dr. Wily. But coming in at number 1, the best version of Dr. Wily is, of course, Alien Dr. Wily. Now again, I'm sure I'm going to be called out for some Mega Man 2 bias, but hear me out. In Mega Man 1, we had the Dr. Wily battle. You fought the Wily machine and the game ended. Makes sense, that machine is crazy and certainly a great final boss. In Mega Man 2, that's all we had to go off of. And while we had more robot masters to battle beforehand, we had an upgraded version of the Wily machine to fight, so once you defeat it, you'd think the game would be over. Especially since on the map of the Wily castle, there was a skull on this level, so it looked like it was the final level of the castle. But of course, you guys know that once you beat the second Wily machine, we get to see the Wily castle again, and there's actually a secret underground level. This alone is crazy, but once you spawn there, you fall as you notice that this is creepy looking. It's green and strangely organic, which contrasts with every other Wily castle stage ever. On top of that, there is no music at all. You hear the weird drops of acid or blood or lava or whatever this stuff is supposed to be, and it's just straight up creepy. So once you get to the boss doors, you have no idea what to expect. But surely, no one could have imagined what happens next. Dr. Wily shows up and jumps into the air and transforms into a literal alien? That is the biggest plot twist of all time. But it gets even crazier. None of your weapons do any damage. Plain old dude does nothing. Metal Blade does nothing. Quick Man nothing. Airman nothing. Crash Man nothing. Until you realize the only way to do damage with this thing is with bubbles, which is probably the least used weapon for most Mega Man players. That is a weird weakness for a boss like this though, until you defeat Alien Wily and realize it was all just a hologram, and the bubbles short-circuited the entire thing, and Dr. Wily was actually just piloting this thing the entire time. I mean, what a crazy story and what an amazing boss. I know, it's easy to overlook how cool this thing is nowadays because this game is so old and we all know the plot twist, but I just wanted to take a minute to truly appreciate how great Alien Wily actually is. This is by far my favorite version of Dr. Wily of all time for the story and suspense, and even for the fight itself, it's super fun. Design-wise, it's also cool. I mean, we watched Dr. Wily transform into a little green alien. That's insane! Anyway, I love this fight. I know people are going to disagree with this being the number 1 version of Dr. Wily, but I don't care. Alien Wily has always been my favorite, and I doubt I'll ever change my mind. But that's on you, Capcom. This is what you have to improve upon in Mega Man 12, so good luck. Well, that was every version of Dr. Wily ranked. As always, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and before you say anything, I know I didn't rank all the Game Boy Dr. Wilys or some of the other spin-off Dr. Wily's, but I was mainly focusing on the mainline Dr. Wily's and, you know, the cartoon Dr. Wily's and whatever Dr. Wily I felt like throwing in this video, but it's because I haven't played the Game Boy games or Rockman and Forte 2, and I didn't want to give them an unfair rating, and, you know, again, I'm focusing on mainline Dr. Wily, but in the future I will play the Game Boy games and make review videos on them, so hopefully that'll satisfy you guys, because I'll talk about Dr. Wily and those games when I make those reviews, and, yeah, hopefully that'll, make you guys happy, and if it doesn't, well, that's a shame, because that makes the end of this video really awkward.